Hello, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I am your host, Mr. Craven. Alright, guys, so Clockwork City has arrived on the console, and with that, we're going to make a couple of adjustments to our builds, whether or not we're going to progress with something else moving forward, or we're going to readjust the builds that we currently have. That's one nice thing about each DLC. We don't have to completely rehaul our builds. Sometimes we can make those minor adjustments with the increased CP points and be just as efficient as we were previously prior to the new DLCs. So with this being said, I'm going to reintroduce you guys to the Relentless Assassin build. Now, this is my Magicka Nightblade build, and I really like this build for DPS. So I'm going to introduce you to how we set everything up, what the bars look like, and how the build works. Okay, so we're going to go into the character sheet first. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and see my max Magicka at 42,902, slightly under 43k. You're going to see my Magicka recovery is at 1,371, and my max health is slightly over the 2,000 or 20,269. The reason that is because I have one item glyphed with health, and I also have that passive. So you can readjust that with all Magicka if you want, but I usually like to stay around the 20k. So I'm more than comfortable with that, and I also have Valkynscorian head on. So yeah, there's, a little bit of extra cushion there, which is not bad for trials. We have our spell crit at 53.2 and spell damage at 2,132 prior to any buffs or builders. And also you're going to go ahead and see to the left our points are all allocated into a Magicka, and we're also going to be running the Lover Mundus with max health and max Magicka. Now, if you want to go with Witch Mother's Brew for a little bit of extra regen, you can do that. Now, keep in mind this staff side, and my Magicka recovery is currently at 1,371. Typically, I like to stay around 1,500, but with this build, I'm able to weave up a little bit more, and I can use my utility, and I can sustain a lot better. So, between 13 to 15 is what I always suggest to players. Okay, now going to the dual sidebar. Now, yes, I have remained dual wield with this bar. I will explain. But going on this side of the bar, you're going to see my character sheet. And my max Magicka is at 44,222. Magic recovery has bumped up to 1,405. Max health has slightly dropped because I don't have that passive for the ability in this side of the bar. So it's 19.7. That's perfect. That's ideal. That's why I'm comfortable with a little bit over 20 on the staff side. Also, you're going to see spell damage at 2,333, and spell crit is at 53.2. A little on the downside. I like to usually keep between 55 to 60, but I'm more than comfortable with this arrangement. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get into the gear. Okay, so we're going to be running Julianos, War Maidens, and of course Valkynscorian. Now, the sword is Nirnhone, glyphed with increase, weapon damage enchantment. Love it. Can't complain about it. Julianos is a great base set. Since Horns of the Reach was applied, a lot of players are using crafted sets. Why? For a couple reasons. One, it's easy to easy to access. Two, it goes across the board. So if I use any other set like War Maidens, it's specific to that damage type. Where Julianos, we can go ahead and get it no matter what type of elemental damage we're doing, what type of damage we're doing, whether it be magic, fire, lightning, whatever, or frost. Julianos is just a very flexible set. It just has a lot of flexibility to it, so it's great. It gives us the crit values we're looking for, it gives us max Magicka, and it gives us that spell damage. Of course, I went with the Nirnhone. I want to make sure that Nirnhone's on the main hand. Why? Because if you put it in the offhand, the value is cut. So you're going to get the most bang out of your buck with having Nirnhone on the main hand. Also, we're going to go with the War Maidens. Now, a lot of people want to be using like trial sets. I have not used a trial set on a Magicka build since Horns of the Reach. Now, a lot of people are like, well, you're losing, that 5%. It doesn't matter for me, because what I end up doing when I switch out to the dual wield, and this is why I stay dual wield, and this especially with this War Maiden set. I'm getting 386 spell damage to my magical abilities at all time. There's no guessing it. It's simply put there at all time, and I'm also getting that passive in Twin Blade and Blunt. Now, yes, you'll get 8% for the Flame Staff on single target abilities. Now, this is true, right? But on the dual wield, I'm getting the Twin Blade and Blunt, which gives me a 5% increase, so I'm getting 2.5 for each sword. I'm wielding dual swords. That is 5%. So I'm going to get the 5, plus I'm going to get the extra bump from the War Maidens. This is why I am not using a trial set on a Magicka build until that gets bumped up. Plain and simple. Just not worth it for me. Just isn't. Sure, it's great when everything's buffed up and it gets bumped up, but until then, you know, I'm losing DPS. Not worth it. Okay, so also we're going to be going in. I'm using the Lightning Staff of Julianos. Now, the Lightning Staff, I can switch between the Flame and the Lightning. The major reason I'm going to be using the Lightning Staff is just simple. My staff side is my AoE bar, right, guys? That's where I want to use a Lightning Staff, because when I go down and I look into Ancient Knowledge, Lightning Staff increases my damage done with area of effects abilities by 8%, where the Flame Staff increases the damage of only single target abilities. These are your abilities. So if you have AoE damage on one side, you want to be capitalizing on that Lightning Staff. Though the Flame Staff is really good, so if you want to sacrifice a little bit of damage, you can use the Flame Staff. And of course, I am Dunmer, so I get that boost, but I'm still losing. So I'm going to go with the Lightning Staff. If I need to, I can switch to the Flame Staff. Just that simple. All right, so also we have this also in Nirnholm, once again, increased. The offhand, like I said, it's decisive right now. I want to get that in precise. I just want to bump that up. So I'm going to be transmuting that. Way to go, Zos. Also, we're going to use Valkynscorian. Now, this one is light, divine. It's intentional. I'd like to do infused, but I'm using, you know, the Lover Mundus. That little extra penetration kind of helps kind of with the cushion. So, you know, I went with the divine on this. What the Valkynscorian does gives me max health. When I deal damage with the damage over time effect, I have an 8% chance to summon a meteor that deals 12,780. Now, keep in mind, when I go to the back bar, you're going to see a slight adjustment. So 12.4 and 12.7. You see what I'm saying? So I'm getting a value adjustment depending on what side it procs. Not much, but it is noticeable. Okay. Also, Curus of Julianos, heavy. I want the bigger value on my heavy pieces. Infused, ideal. Valkynscorian arm, medium. I want to keep that 6% for the Undaunted bonus, so I want one heavy and one medium. That's divine, ideal. Glyph max Magicka. Sash of Julianos, divine. That's the max health glyph. The War Maiden's glove, divine, max Magicka. And Breachers of Julianos, infused. And Shoes of Julianos, divine, max health. Also, we have the War Maiden's jewelry set. I have 2 in recovery and 1 in spell damage. Let's go ahead and get into the skills. Oh, I forgot to switch that out. I was running around here. Let me switch that out. Okay. So usually I start everything on my AoE bar, especially in my rotation. But the skills that we have is my Sap Essence. My Sap Essence is my AoE spam button. So I really like this because it gives me the major sorcery. It's going to go ahead and heal other allies for every target I hit, and it deals an insane amount of damage. Love the Sap Essence. Unstable Wall of Storms. Now, if you go ahead and put on the Flame Staff, which you can do, Inferno, that will turn to Unstable Wall of Fire. Now, here's the deal, guys. So I'm going to show this to you. We got 2,299 on the tooltip, right? Let's go over to the Refreshing Path, which is another ability I have, for 1,657. Okay? These are both AoEs. 229, 1657. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go to my staff. I'm going to switch out for my Inferno staff. It's still Nirnholm. Still gold. But look. We get the drop. You see, the ability drops if I use the Flame Staff. So that's why I'm going to go with the Lightning on the AoE side. You can go Inferno if you want. Nothing wrong with that. So I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with that. Okay, then I'm going to be using Siphoning Attacks. Siphoning Attacks is great because this imbues my weapon. It's going to allow me to recoup Magicka for my light and heavy attacks for 20 seconds. When this effect ends, I'm going to also get an additional 4,270 additional magic. So I just keep this up throughout the rotation, trying to keep it up at all times. I sometimes mess up, but this does help me recoup. That's why I can go a little under that 1,500. Okay, Inner Light's going to be on both bars. Why? Max Magicka 5%, and it's going to give me the Major Prophecy. Also, we're going to be using Thunderous Rage. I don't like Eye of the Storm. I don't really like that because I have to be up in it. With this, there's certain mechanics that can just drop it, and it's there. So I prefer this ultimate better. Plus, it deals more damage than Eye of the Storm. Okay, going to the back bar, Degeneration. This is my builder. All the time I use this. Why? Because it gives me major sorcery. Now keep in mind this doesn't stack, so I have Sap Essence, but I still use this because it applies a dot effect that can help proc Valkynscorian. And then on top of that, what I'm also able to do is get the passive for the Might of the Guild, which is in the Mages Guild. So it's a Mage Guild passive, also granting me the Empower. Yes, I can use the Inner Light to get that buff, but here's the deal. I'm going to spend 4,000 Magicka versus 1,200 or 1,200. Okay, sure. That's resource management. Not. So I want to go ahead. I want to use the degen. Also, Funnel Health is my spam. Now, I use the Levitate on this build. I recently have been starting to use this a little bit more. Yes, the crippling gives me a little bit more damage, but debilitates a really good effect, especially on mobs. I can go ahead and throw this on multiple mobs, increasing my uptime for my Valkynscorian. So I find it very resourceful, but if you want a little bit more single target DPS, the cripple's a lot better. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, why am I not using my Relentless Assault? Well, here's the deal, guys. When I go down here and I go with the Merciless Resolve, it's going to give me the Minor Berserk, right? But the big deal is I get that from a healer anyways if they're using Combat Prayer. So why do I want to use an ability that doesn't stack the buff? Sure, I can go ahead, weave, and get the Spectral Bow, but for me personally, I much prefer the finisher of the Impale. Now, if you don't want to use Impale and you want to use that, that's fine, but I prefer the Impale because I'm dealing a lot more damage during that finishing phase. So that's my play preference, but you can do what as you like. Also, I'm going to stay with the Shooting Star on this bar. Why? It deals flame damage. I am a Dunmer. I want to utilize this and capitalize a little bit more on my single target ultimate. Plus, it does have a nice AoE effect afterwards that can once again proc Valkynscorian. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and use that to the best of my ability. Also, we're going to go into the champion points here. Since we've got more champion points, we've reallocated a few things. So we see Elfborn at 1208. I always go at 1208. Why? It's the equivalent value of the Shadow Mundus. So I want to go ahead and get that to 12.08. We have Elemental Expert at 1301. I don't put it any further because of diminishing return. I sometimes go up to 14%, but with this build, I'm more than comfortable with 1301. Spell Erosions at 2766. Yes, we do get the passive in the light armor for 4,884. Yes, we do have the Lover Mundus, but we want to get between that 11 and 12 in our penetrating values, keeping in mind that Major Breach and Minor Breach would be applied along with the Crushing Enchantment. With all those values, with all those additional and debuffs taken into consideration, we want to be between 11 and 12 in our penetrating values. Okay, going over to Staff Expert, we're at 1210. This just helps my light attacks during my rotation for the weave, increasing my DPS. We also have Master at Arms at 1824. You notice that I don't have the passive for the Butcher. Some people like it. If you want to go ahead, put 75 points and reallocate a few into that, you can. But usually I'm at finishing phase. I'm using Impale, so that passive doesn't really apply to me due to the fact that I'm using Impale more frequently than my light and heavy attacks during finishing phase. Okay, Thaumaturge. Now, for other classes, it would differ. I will tell you that is that. So I got Thaumaturge up to 1602. Once again, a lot of people want to go ahead and put an exploiter, and given that this is a dot build, they would say that is a very valuable thing for me to utilize. Unfortunately, though, it has to be an off balance to occur, and that's going ahead and redirecting a lot of my base damage from the get. To me, it's just not worth it. But if you were going to be a trial and you're going to have a lot more uptime on that off balance because you have other players effectively putting the off balance on, yes, this would be an incentive for you to put up to 75 points. So keep that in mind as well. Also, we have Ironclad at 1602. We have 1 extra point, so I put in light armor focus. I put thick skin up to 1208. Elemental Defender, I am a vampire, so keep in mind I'm getting that 10%, but it comes at a cost. I have to offset some of that elemental damage, even being a Dunmer, so I put that at 14%. Hardy is at 1110. Coming over here, I want quick recovery at 909, just so whenever I'm getting healed, I'm getting more heals. So yes, I want that, especially in a lot of trials. Warlord is at 904, and of course we have tenacity at 14%. I want to recoup on my heavy attacks as much as possible. Arcanus is at 14. Never go above any of these values because of diminishing return. If you want to downgrade this, you can. That's a personal call depending on how you want to spec your points. Mooncalf, I had a couple points left, so I put it, that was where I put my extra points. And Healthy is at 1015, and I put some points into Tumbling because I got to roll in and out of mechanics, so that's at 611. So if you're going to go ahead and take any points out of Tenacity and Arcanus, I would suggest putting in their Tumbling or your Shadow Ward. And that is how the champion points are allocated. So I'm going to go ahead and get to daily, see if we can get a queue going down. And like I said, a lot of people want to go ahead and just be like, why aren't you using Moon Dancers? And why aren't you using this or that? The only time I need a trial set with Magicka these days is if I need to use my Infallible Ether for the application. Unfortunately, Moon Dancers is uncontrollable, which I'm getting. Sure, it's great. It's a great set. The 5% is great. But once again, I have to have all of these applied effects to get that to occur. Why am I going to sacrifice an additional almost 400 and something spell damage to do that? No, I'm getting an extra 400. Why am I not going to capitalize on that? Now, if you wanted to use a, let's say, a Maelstrom staff, you can do that. So here's the big deal here, guys, and I'm going to say this. I don't necessarily need a Maelstrom staff. You can get it, and you can go with the, you can get it and get the proc, and it's great. I love what the devs did with those weapons. It makes it a lot flexible. They're controllable. Everything that they've done with the changes for Master and Maelstrom weapons is an incentive. It's a plus. It is an increase for PvE. Yes, PvPers are bitching and whining about it, but here's the deal, guys. If I sacrifice this, I'm going to be losing my 4th piece bonus on my War Maidens. So you would need the spell damage, and that's why you would want to go Nirnholm. If it was a crit value, say your 4th piece was a crit, you would want Precise. If you were going to go with Max Magicka, you would want Infused. So you want to capitalize on the missing value for the 4th trait. That's the big difference there. So I'm going to be doing 2 streams today. So I'm going to actually cut this one off. So if anybody has any questions or comments about this build, please post below. I'm going to shut this down, reopen it. That's the only way I can do the daily run. And this way I can talk to you, my viewers. So stay put, stay tuned, and I'll be back. And for the ones who have any questions or comments about the build, post below. I appreciate you for watching. And once again and always, have a nice day.